Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more Blender tips and tricks. So, what exactly is the Array Modifier? In simple terms, the Array Modifier allows you to create multiple copies of an object in various configurations, like grids, lines, and circles. It's an essential tool for modeling, especially when you need to replicate objects efficiently. Let's start with a basic example. Here's a cube. We'll add an array modifier to it and see how it replicates the cube in a straight line. If we increase the count, can make more copies do you want. Now, let's break down the settings within the array modifier. These settings determine how your objects are duplicated and positioned. First one is relative offset. The relative offset option moves each duplicate of the object by a specified distance relative to the dimensions of the original object. The offset is applied based on the original object's size along the x, y, and z axes. The values for these axes determine how far each duplicate is spaced from the previous one. Relative offset is ideal for creating simple, evenly spaced arrays such as rows of tiles, bookshelves, stairs, or any repeated linear structure. You can increase the number of copies in the array to extend the pattern as far as needed. The values you input for the x, y, and z axes dictate how the duplicates are spaced. X equals 1, y equals 0, z equals 0. Creates an array in a straight line along the x-axis, with each object directly beside the last. As well as x equals 0, y equals 0, z equals 1. Creates an array along the z-axis, useful for vertical stacking. Adjusting these values allows you to create arrays that extend in any direction or even diagonally by combining offsets along multiple axes. The offset values are relative to the object's dimensions, meaning if the object's scale changes, the distance between duplicates changes accordingly. This makes it easy to create evenly spaced arrays without needing to calculate the exact spacing. Understanding the relative offset in Blender's array modifier is fundamental for creating simple and efficient patterns and structures. It's especially useful for beginners who want to grasp the basics of creating arrays in a 3D scene. Okay, let's move to constant offset. The constant offset in the array modifier allows you to create multiple copies of an object and position each copy at a fixed distance from the previous one. This is done by adding a constant value to the position of each successive object. In the array modifier settings, you'll see options for relative offset and constant offset. Check the box for constant offset to enable it. You can set the constant offset values in the x, y, and z fields. These values represent the distance that each copy will be moved in the corresponding axis. As an example, by setting a positive value in x-axis by 2, you can create a linear array of objects spaced 2 units apart along the x-axis. As well as we can use this in other z and y-axis. By using 2 axes, you can create a 2D grid of objects. As an example, setting x equals 2 and y equals 2 will create a grid pattern. On the other hand, you can combine constant offset with relative offset to create more complex patterns. These are some of the key aspects and tips regarding the constant offset in Blender's array modifier. Next part is object offset. In Blender, the object offset option in the array modifier allows you to use another object to control the transformation, location, rotation, and scale of each array element. This feature is powerful for creating patterns that follow custom paths. Here are a few practical examples to showcase object offset. First, set up the array modifier. Add the array modifier to your object. Set the count to the number of duplicates you want. Disable the relative offset and constant offset options, or set them as needed. Then add empty object. This object will control the transformation of the arrayed objects. In the array modifier, check the object offset box. In the field next to it, select the object you just created as the offset object. Now we can move, rotate, or scale the offset object. The array will update accordingly, applying the transformation of the offset object to each duplicate in the array. For example, if you move the offset object along the x-axis, each subsequent object in the array will be offset by that movement. Rotating the offset object will cause each arrayed object to rotate relative to the previous one. That wraps up our deep dive into the Array Modifier in Blender. We've covered everything from the basics to some advanced techniques, and I hope you found this tutorial both informative and inspiring. Don't forget to hit that like button if you enjoyed the video, and subscribe for more Blender tips and tricks. I'd love to see what you create with the Array Modifier, so share your work in the comments or tag me on social media. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.